unmuted.
Recording in progress.
So, firstly, thank you all for being here or being on Zoom, and thank you for asking me to do this expert series. I think I have you to thank for that, Frederick. I haven't been at one before because I guess you haven't done one in quite a while. So it's quite an honour to be the first one to get back up and running with expert series. So yeah, the title, as you see, is Facebook is Dead, Long Live Facebook. That was actually a working title originally when Frederick asked me for a working title, and then I saw the posters out here with that as the title, so I said, I better stick with it. Like, quick question, who has used Facebook ads before?
Definitely.
Cool, that's good. I don't know if people can be interactive in the chat or if you're going to monitor that, Alberto, but by the way, please stop me at any point for a question or if you need some clarification on anything. I've said I won't pull up the chat, so if you, Alberto, want to just let me know. So yeah, maybe if people want to just let us know, it'd be interesting if people have absolutely no idea about Facebook ads or actually are a little bit more advanced. Also curious to know who uses Facebook or also Instagram. By the way, if I say Facebook, of course now it's Meta is actually covers the whole umbrella. I say Facebook ads, but that covers Instagram as well. So, well, for those of you here, you all Facebook, Instagram users?
Yes.
Oh, none? Okay.
Oh.
Good. Yeah, good. That helps for this presentation. So, to introduce myself, I figured the easiest thing would be to, let me try to move that from the bottom. No, it doesn't want to move. Anyway, I decided to show you what Facebook knows about me, and Facebook obviously knows a hell of a lot about all of us. So here you can just see my profile. So yeah, my business, as you've seen down here, is Kingfisher Ads, and we specialize in Facebook advertising. And you can see here, obviously I'm living in Grand Rapids, but I'm originally from Ireland, and yeah, just what I studied as well. Obviously there's a lot more there in my Facebook profile, but also Facebook. Facebook obviously knows so much more about me, so this is what Facebook, well, it knows where I'm from. So this is a town called Bandon in southwest Ireland, and just to put it in perspective or for comparison purposes, you can see here the size of an audience you would have when you're using Facebook advertising if you drew a 50-kilometre radius around where I'm from, which would also include the city of Cork. So that's actually Ireland's second biggest city. It kind of gives you an idea when we compare. I was living in Spain for the last almost 4 years in a city called Malaga, and that, you know, again, in population terms or for Facebook advertising terms, it would be much larger, closer to 1 million people. And obviously now I'm in Grand Rapids, and if you do a 50-kilometre radius around Grand Rapids, it would be something similar, a little bit less than 1 million people. And well, why is that relevant? Well, if you have a local business and you want to advertise in the area, you would want to know what sort of audience size you could reach. And also, you might see here, I actually, when I set this up, I can't remember what budget it was defaulting to, but you can see the reach down here. So whatever the budget might be, and it's probably defaulting to something quite low, maybe like $20, $30 a day. Here in Grand Rapids, you would reach just up to 800 people. But if I look back on the previous ones in Spain or in Ireland, you would reach far more people, and that's basically because it's more expensive to run Facebook ads here in the States, and that just comes down to many different factors, mainly probably competition. Interesting. So moving on, again, talking about what Facebook knows about me, and this is where it gets a little bit more interesting because, well, some of these interests would be based on me obviously following people, particularly on Instagram. Some of the people, I mean, I honestly don't know how some of these names have ended up there, and I'm not quite sure. And by the way, these seem to be what Facebook shows as my top interests. So you can access, you can see in your profile the interests that Facebook knows about you that it's going to use for your for the ads they're going to target with you. I discovered that there's 470 interests that Facebook has for me, and these seem to be the top list. Like I said, I don't know how some of them are there, like Female Entrepreneur Association or maybe job hunting, but it's quite likely that I'm doing research for clients and I'm ending up on those sites or something like that. But what you'll see here, even in what seems to be the top ones, there's definitely some clear trends, and one particular one is that I like to play golf. And Facebook definitely knows that, and I know that from the ads that Facebook shows me. And to take it to another level, I took all the 470 interests and put them into this word cloud, and again, you can see golf is definitely clearly there, but all sorts of others like marketing, business, advertising, software, computers, all that kind of thing. So I thought that was quite interesting, and so Facebook knows all this about me, and I'm sure has it weighted in many different ways based on all sorts of interactions that I have or websites that I visit. Then, in addition to that, obviously Facebook knows other things about me. For example, it knows I use an Android phone, actually more specifically Samsung phone, and it also knows that somehow figured out that in the last 3-4 months I became a parent, so it has me down in the parents category. And there's all sorts of other things here, like friends of people with birthdays this month. So actually, I'm not friends with you on Facebook, yes, Albert, but you would fall into that category. So happy birthday!
Thank you.
And yeah, maybe like just a little bit more interesting from a point of view of targeting ads is that it has me classified as a frequent international traveler. Mind you, I haven't traveled in a little while now since I got here in September. But yeah, so frequent traveler, or knows I originally lived in Ireland, or that I live abroad, live away from my home place. So yeah, that's a little bit more about me and what Facebook knows. But moving on to why would you want to advertise on Facebook? So I put up a bunch of stats here, and there's many other places you could be spending your advertising budget, but it's hard to ignore Facebook when there's nearly 3 billion people in the world using it on a monthly basis. So that's like 37% of the world's population use Facebook monthly, and 77% of internet users are active on at least one meta platform, so that would include WhatsApp and Instagram as well. Well, I mean, I don't know, you probably don't need me to list through all of them, but maybe what's, especially here in the United States, it's interesting to see that 69% of Americans actually use Facebook. And what I find fascinating is the amount of time that people spend. So like 19.6 hours a month on Facebook. Like if you only sleep, how many hours do you sleep? That's more than a waking day that we're awake that people are spending on Facebook in a whole month. So I think that's really fascinating. And Facebook Marketplace just seems to be growing with 1 billion users on there. It's probably different for different countries. I don't know what all of you think, but my impression since I've moved here is that that a lot of people use Facebook Marketplace. It wasn't something that I used at all before moving here, but I think that's a great tool for keeping people on Facebook. A lot of people maybe are moving off or not using Facebook as much, but they're drawn back to Marketplace and probably don't really realize it, but they are interacting with ads on Marketplace as well. And then Alberto looks guilty. It's been great for us, like having, starting a family and everything, picked up so many things because we had to furnish a whole apartment and everything. Yeah, so and yeah, like TikTok is obviously something a lot of people are thinking about now in terms of advertising, and I'll touch on it again in a second. But believe it or not, Facebook is actually more popular for short form videos, and that's only second to YouTube. But TikTok is obviously growing, but for a younger demographic, and that's why I cover it here just briefly. If you were to compare Facebook ads, Google ads, and TikTok ads, obviously I could have included other platforms, but the main difference with Google is that, and especially Google search, which is what most of what Google ads is that it's intent-based. So if you know, to use my example of being interested in golf, and I actually want to buy new golf clubs at the moment, but if I go into Google and search something to do with golf clubs, obviously I'm telling Google I'm interested in golf clubs. But I'm not telling that specifically or intentionally to Facebook. Facebook just has its own way of figuring it out. And so Facebook is not based on intent in that way. TikTok has a younger audience. It is getting a little bit older. Ads are cheaper on TikTok. So if people are comparing Facebook ads and TikTok ads, A lot of people are saying they're switching to TikTok because it's cheaper and that, but actually Facebook still knows far more about its users. TikTok struggles with that a little bit because I don't know if any of you use, and raise your hands if you use TikTok. No, yeah. I have an account and I don't look at it at all, but I do see some of that content that people are maybe like sharing that video through another platform. But people, it's a bit faster and a lot of videos are fun, but in terms of TikTok understanding what you're interested in, it's much more difficult than Facebook. So Facebook still is much better for targeting, and depending on the product and depending on the audience, in general, Facebook is better for return on investment still. If especially with something like an e-commerce product. So moving on. So when's best to advertise on Facebook or Instagram? Well, it's better for consumer products, so B2C rather than B2B. B2B has a place as well, but maybe more for retargeting. I'll talk about that again in a few minutes. But yeah, specifically if you know your audience already, they've interacted with you already, then Facebook or Instagram could be great for B2B to re-engage with them. But in terms of going out to cold audiences, you're going to find that more difficult with B2B. And obviously with B2C, it depends on the product. And as I mentioned here, it's best if you have a unique product. Now that might seem obvious, but going back to my golf clubs example, like if you're selling golf clubs, a lot of other stores are selling the same golf clubs, and you're probably quite limited in how much you can adjust the price. So you could show me an ad for golf clubs, but I could just as easily go and buy those exact golf clubs somewhere else. Whereas if what you have is unique, then obviously I'm more interested, and particularly if I didn't already know about it, which is often the case on Facebook. I mentioned as well having a standout unique selling proposition. Well, again, if you're selling something that a lot of other people are selling as well, you're going to have to find a way to make sure that people realize that yours is unique or yours is better. So if you have that and you can clearly demonstrate that, then obviously that's great. I mentioned a great offer as well, and again, that's because, there can be so much competition, and if your product or service is very similar to other people, it might come down to what your offer is, and that's what you'll find with a lot of e-commerce products, where they're, whether it's a seasonal sale or it's buy one get one free or a bundle of products, that's where it tends to work best for them. And yeah, it's also, you're going to look at Facebook when somebody's not directly looking for your products on Google, because as I said already, if it's mainly based on intent, so again, just to use my example on something like golf clubs, allocating the budget to Google in that case is probably going to make more sense. But if it's something that someone doesn't even realize, or maybe it's a unique product for, let's just take golf again, but something that I'm not aware of or I didn't know of, that then obviously you can get my attention on Facebook by showing it to me there. But I'm not going to think to search for it because I didn't even know it existed. Sure. And then also, it's best if you're not too geographically constrained. So, we could run ads for a business here locally in Grand Rapids, but if it's local where you need people to come in the door to, a salon or whatever it might be, obviously you can only advertise within a certain radius around your area, and even if you wanted to spend more money on Facebook ads, you might not be able to, or you'll start reaching the same people over and over again. So it can definitely work, but if you're trying to scale ads and make a lot of money out of your Facebook ads, then it's best if you can, target the whole country or even worldwide or whatever it might be. So if you want to get started with Facebook ads, probably, if it was I'm not sure about if people answered on the call to say if they've used Facebook ads, or if somebody hasn't used Facebook ads but you're thinking about it, it's probably best to just start by boosting a post. So you'll see on your business page, you put a post up, or same on Instagram, it'll be promote post, and that's got better over the last few years, the options that you can do, and it's a good way to just start interacting with the platform, see what you can do in terms of targeting. But it's obviously a more simplified, more basic version than what you can ultimately do with Facebook Ads Manager. So yeah, now I mentioned Ads Manager or Business Manager. Something newer is now the Meta Business Suite. To be honest, I don't really use it myself because I'm just doing ads and I'm in Business Manager or Ads Manager all the time doing that. getting started, again, that's the starting point. But I have just, if you can see the screenshots here, if you're in Meta Business Suite, because I know people can kind of get a bit stuck in there when they want to get the Ads Manager and they're not. They maybe knew how to use that and they hadn't used it in a while, and now they're kind of stuck in Meta Business Suite, and you can click on ads, but that'll show you a totally different interface. But if you go to All Tools, then you'll see Ads Manager here, and that'll bring you into like what just looks like a totally different platform. So as I said, yeah, my advice is maybe you get started with Meta Business Suite, but if you're doing anything more advanced or you want to learn more, then you definitely should be in Ads Manager, and you pretty much ignore Meta Business Suite. And yeah, kind of top tip, make sure the Facebook Pixel is on your website. Even if you're not running ads now, but you're thinking about doing it in the future, then Pixel, it's, for anyone that doesn't know, it's just like a simple piece of code, a little bit like putting Google Analytics on your site. Just get it in there, and you know, it's kind of pretty much set it and forget it. There is more that you can do in the back end, but for a very starting point, just get it on there tracking people, because when it comes to the point that you want to run ads, you can retarget people that have been on your website, and also Facebook is getting an understanding of the people that are using your website. So when you're running ads, it'll try and find more similar people to those people. And also I have up here, just to use the Chrome Pixel Helper extension, just see, I don't know if you can be seen very well here, but on my, use my mouse here for anyone looking at the screen. So up here, if you just have that in Chrome, it will tell you some information. At least you'll know, and you can do it for any website. You can go onto any website and see if they have the Pixel installed. And also, you should try and set up the Conversions API. And that's something, I'm not going to go into too much detail on it now, but especially since Apple made changes last year, almost a year ago, it's more, the tracking with the Pixel unfortunately isn't as good as it used to be. But if you install the conversions, or set up the Conversions API, you can do more tracking at a server level. So especially with e-commerce like Shopify, for example, has it pretty much by default, but you can set it up and integrate it into other sites as well. And that's where you'll see, if you can see on this screen here, so it's saying that this, so I just have different events down here in this screenshot, but it shows browser and server. So it shows that, and then you could click in and see, and it deduplicates, so it's not going to track the same event on the browser and on the server. It's going to know that it's the same event and deduplicate it. But there are times when you pick up events on the server that wouldn't be picked up on the Pixel. I hope that makes sense, and please anybody stop me if that sounds some way complicated. So yeah, just to talk about running ads and the types of ads that you can run, or more specifically like the types of objectives. So what I'm mostly doing for clients, especially because a lot of them would be e-commerce, would be using the conversions objective, because ultimately what we want is people to convert, people to buy. And obviously people will use traffic just to get people to their site, or engagement, to engage with the post, maybe video views as well. And I've been using more lead generation as well, which I'll explain in more details in a minute. But the important thing to know here is that Facebook will give you exactly what you ask for. So some people try to, they think, oh, the conversions seem to be more expensive when I use conversions. My cost per 1,000 impressions is higher, and maybe they're not even getting many conversions, and they try a different objective. But if you, for especially something like video views, if you try video views as your objective, Facebook is basically going to go out to all the people that regularly watch videos. So Facebook knows the different cohorts of people. They are not going to be the same people that you would be targeting if you did a conversions focused ad. So if you did a conversions focused ad to an audience of about 1 million people, it's never going to reach that million people in the audience. At best, maybe it depends on your budget, it might reach about 20% of them. And it's going to know that 20% within that audience that are most likely to convert and target them. Same thing, engagement, video views, even traffic, because traffic is people that are just trigger happy and they'll just click the link button on your, or the call to action button on your ad, but maybe go to your website and do nothing. So you do just need to keep that in mind. There are times when you maybe just want to get more traffic, or you want, maybe you intentionally want a lot of engagement on a post because it looks positive. Sometimes I might be running an ad that's more focused on conversions, but you could run an engagement focused ad just temporarily to just get some comments and likes, reactions on your ad, and then use that same ad in your conversions campaign. But I mentioned lead generation as well. If I I was thinking it was the next slide. Yeah, firstly, just to talk about audiences. There are 3 different types of audiences that you can use on Facebook. So saved audiences, custom audiences, and lookalike audiences. Many of you maybe know what these are already, but just to quickly go through them. Saved audience is basically going back to what I spoke about at the beginning, about interests and all that Facebook knows about everybody, or knows about me in that case. So you can use any combination of interests, behaviors, demographics to create your audience and try and target those people. Custom audience is people that have actually interacted with you or your business already. So as it says here, like customer lists, so email lists that you have, and obviously your website traffic, and like that website traffic, going back to what I showed in the Pixel, can track a lot of different events. So especially something like people added to the cart on your website or got as far as the checkout, but they didn't actually convert, then you're going to want to use that audience of people, that group of people, and retarget them to try and get them back to purchase. Same thing if they just engaged with a post, or in other words, they engaged with an ad, but perhaps they didn't click into the ad, then that's another audience that you could use. And then the lookalike audience is where you're trying to find people that are similar to people in any of those custom audiences that you have. So that works, like you're basically taking the whole user base of Facebook and finding the people that are most similar to the people in the audience that you're using, and that will range from 1% to 10%. So as I have here as an example, if you're using a 1% lookalike audience in the United States, there would be 2.7 million people in it. So that's basically because there's 270 million people in the United States using Facebook. Then you could also do something where you could like reduce the size of that. Probably the best way is just to do it by age. If you didn't want to target 2.7 million people for some reason, you could use something else like an interest as well. But in general, an audience like that, a 1% lookalike audience, could work very, very well, especially if you have it based off your customers. And that's what you're most likely going to do. So use a customer audience, a customer list, or use the purchase event in the Pixel and create a 1% lookalike audience based on that to try and find new customers. I will say though that unfortunately lookalike audiences used to work better, in general work a little bit better before iOS made changes, but they're still very, very good. So yeah, here I just want to talk about, with reference to that, with the changes that Facebook made and how audiences or targeting doesn't work quite as well as it used to be. It means that the copy you put in your ads, the creatives as well, but more so the copy and the messaging becomes even more important. This is just one example of an ad that I have for a client, so Dropchef. They're based in Ireland, but they're the equivalent basically to HelloFresh or Blue Apron or anyone, Green Chef that you know of here. And this is an ad and it's a type of ad that I've used for many other clients as well. And you can see here, actually recently Facebook will give you a little bit of a warning if your ad is over 270 characters. But if you can write a good ad, you can do the selling within the ad. And I do this, I've learned this from a mentor of mine as well. And there's kind of a science to it really. And we can get these ads working really, really well. So as you can see, I'm not expecting you to be able to read it all, but you can see that's the whole length of the ad there on the site. And what's very important here as well is to realize, like, obviously Facebook ads is all about mobile, really, because it's about 90% of people will see your ads on mobile. That see more link here, so you'll see like almost 3 lines, so like a bit over 2.5 lines, and then you'll get a see more link. So it's important, obviously, what you're putting in there that people see to make them interested enough to click that see more link. In this case, I actually pretty much intentionally cut it off as well mid-sentence. Often you will fit a full sentence in there, but here it says, say wasting money on, and then maybe somebody is a little bit intrigued to know what that's saying, but hopefully the rest of it has got their attention as well. And I could talk a lot about an ad like this, but as I mentioned, there's kind of a science to it where we're identifying what's the problem that people have, what's the benefit that they're looking for, what's the reason options. And also we're often trying to use, put a name, like we call it the mechanism, so the thing that you're actually selling. Because a lot of, like, this particular client of mine, they don't refer to this as a 30-minute cooking box, but we're trying to say what it is within a name. So, and this ad has been working really, really well. So we're saying, like, this 30-minute cooking box, and like, you know, that hopefully sounds pretty good to people and tells them within just a few words of what it is we're actually talking about. It's speaking specifically to parents. It's not just for parents, but that's an audience that we've identified that we want to speak to, so they see the word parents, and they identify with that. And then, you know, obviously the benefit of being able to regularly cook a variety of meals is something that appeals to them, and without wasting money. I don't know if convenience food actually is so much of a term used here in the States. I don't think so. But that would be, you know, your microwave meals that, you know, that you put in a microwave, just something quick. Or it could also include, and you might see the word, I think I have the word takeaway down here, which also wouldn't be a word used here, but would be in Ireland just for, like, takeout. So convenience food could cover a number of things, and people recognize that, yeah, they're spending money, they're overspending on that kind of stuff and wasting money, and this obviously gets their attention, and then they continue to read and, you know, talks a bit more about the problem here. And as I said, there's kind of a sequence to it. And again, these types of ads get a lot of engagement and tend to last much longer than other ads, where they can kind of burn out quicker. The image is also very important. By the way, I should say, like, obviously you don't always have, I'm not saying go out and write ads this long, but I'm just talking about, like, just how you get someone's attention, also without calling them out. Some people will be like, hey, are you tired of cooking the same meals all the time? But it can make you feel very negative. So we're not trying to make people feel negative. We're speaking more as we are just saying what it is we have. Because Facebook doesn't like that either. They realize that what you're saying, if you use the word you or use the word feel and things like that, Facebook will recognize that this could give somebody a negative experience. So obviously feel free now or any time or after to ask me more questions about something like that if you're interested. So I should have mentioned that the headline underneath obviously is important here, and this is an ad that we'll only run on Facebook, not on Instagram, because Instagram doesn't show the text in the same way. Yeah, I just put this in as well, just for an ad like that, it's important to recognize where your customers are, and it's a little bit like what I spoke about in the beginning about if people, you know, if something's intent-based. It's basically, some people aren't even aware, so they're unaware that they even have a problem. So going back to that ad, some like parents or individuals might not really think too much. They might think their eating habits are fine, and they're not overspending until they read something like that, and you make them realize actually I have a problem, or they might be aware of the problem, and then so you speak to them on that level. Or maybe they're aware of other solutions, but they're not aware of your solution, or maybe they are aware of your product, but they're not aware of your particular deal or your particular offer. So it's important to understand where they're at, the majority of the people that you're speaking to. Now I just wanted to show you, I mentioned about the creative, and I wanted to show you some creative examples from my experience. And there's all sorts of different ways you can do creatives, and if you're looking at ads yourself, you probably will see a lot of ads where there is text on the images, but in general, I find that it's the ads that look, or the images that look more natural, more like they fit in, because they're social platforms. So we want the ads to fit in what people are scrolling through. And particularly an image like that first one there, where it's a selfie. And this is, well, of course, I have a client that is a golf-related business, and you know, if you're interested in golf and that comes up in your feed, you can kind of see that these guys are dressed like golfers, they're on a golf course, but maybe your first thought is, who's that? Is that a friend of mine? I mean, actually, we see all the time people tagging people saying, hey, he looks like you, or is this you, this kind of thing. But it's just a natural image. It's been taken clearly as a selfie. It's not, we have not pulled that off a stock website. Maybe it's a business idea for me. I need like a stock photo website that has real looking selfie photos, not big cheesy grins with all these really good looking people. And then the Actually, the next image I got from my client, they're not the best at giving you good images, and I didn't really like it at first, but I cropped out what was to the left of it, and it's clear that it's a box, and the ad is talking about a box. We've got the recipe card, and we've got, you know, some vegetables. I don't think those vegetables all go into one dish, which was something that I kind of wanted more of, and we were working on getting more of. But the image works really well. Again, I think probably because it's not actually that good an image, you again know it didn't come off a stock website. It's got their branding in it. Yeah, it's colourful, it looks real. I'm going to talk about this next one in a second in more detail, but that's just again just a straight up photograph that's been taken, and it works really, really well. The other one, this one is part of a photo shoot, but it's worked incredibly well for us. I think faces in images work really well, but also somebody holding something in a hand is also works really, really well. And yeah, this one just has done well for a very long time. I mentioned, am I doing okay on time?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
I mentioned about lead generation ads, and if you don't know what that means, lead generation ads in terms of the Facebook objective is are ads that don't bring you to someone else's website. It's all done within Facebook, within Instagram. So it's called like an on Facebook lead form. So you click the ad and the form pops up. This is just a preview from with Ads Manager. It would basically look like this on your phone, but maybe it's slightly different. So that's the ad. This is a business coach that I work with. She teaches people how to use LinkedIn, and then you click the ads, you click sign up, you'll see just a little bit more of a description, and then it is important here. The one thing about lead ads is that you'll get more leads this way than bringing people to a website, and you'll also generally get lower quality of leads. So that is something to be careful of. But if you can actually do a little bit more to qualify them by asking them some questions, that should help slow them down in the process, because the last screen you see here, Facebook will actually pre-populate your details, and that's brilliant. It saves people time, but it also means that people will submit the form a little bit too easily. So asking them some other questions is a very good idea, and it also makes them think and makes them understand more about what it is you're actually offering. And another example of that here is, so I showed this image a second ago. This is actually a UK-based company that's offering trips here to the States for US sports, mainly NFL. And so this is an ad where, I don't know how into football any of you are, or anyone on the call, but the schedule will be announced sometime in the middle of May for next season, so then they will announce their trips soon after that. So this is getting people on the priority list. And I only started working with them quite recently actually, and I wouldn't be too aware of the interest in NFL in the UK, but I know I'm told it's very big, but I'm very impressed with how these ads are going, which is great. And we've been asking these questions: what city would they most like to visit? Do they have a favorite NFL team? And how many people would they be bringing? So it'll be part of it'll be a group trip where it'll be about 20 people, but you could book individually or book 2 or 3 or 4 of you or whatever. And of course they'll do custom trips if you have a bigger group. But getting that information is huge. And then we end up with a big database like this, and I'm very interested as well, just to see, for example, Miami Dolphins seems to be, this is just a snapshot of some of the leads, but Miami Dolphins are, a trip to Miami seems to probably be top of the list. But you see, I'm surprised that so many people actually in the UK have a favourite team, rather than just saying, no, I don't have a favourite team.
Is that one of the columns that just say one person in the party?
Yeah, there's a fewer one. Yeah. And so here, this is just a snapshot of their campaign within Ads Manager. So I'm using 3 different audiences. You see down the bottom, actually, there's this ad bank, which I often just use as a place to create a lot of ads and then duplicate them out into the different ad sets. Otherwise, it can get a bit confusing as time goes on and you're adding more ads. So that never gets switched on. It's just like a bank or a library of ads. And we're using, so this has worked well at an earlier campaign we did. So an audience of people that are into other sports, but sports where to go on a trip, like say to the Rugby World Cup or the Cricket World Cup or something like that would be kind of an expensive trip, but quite an experience as well that people are into, or cricket as well, where a lot of people like this time of year, earlier in the year, would go to the Caribbean to some cricket trip down there from the UK. Yeah. And we have a lookalike audience in there as well. So from a previous campaign, based on those leads, we've got you know, a lookalike audience to find similar people, and you can see that that's the audience that's performing the best here. But I did, you know, I mentioned about the form that it is easy for people to fill in, and obviously there's, you know, there can be a question mark over the quality of some of those leads. But getting leads at this price, like £1.57 for with 171 leads when I took this screenshot yesterday, is so cheap. So even if, like, if we can just keep doing that at that kind of level, or even pay a little bit more, like even if 1 in 100 of them is converting, you know, ending up buying a trip, like, it's amazing. Yeah, and this just gives you an idea of kind of breakdowns if you don't know it, as you can see in Facebook in Ads Manager. So I just selected platform here, so you can just see the breakdown. It can be quite interesting to see where people are signing up, you know, more on Facebook or more on Instagram, but obviously you can look at age and gender and that kind of thing. By the way, you can see all this for this type of ad, so it all happens on Facebook. Unfortunately now, with the changes made due to iOS 14, you can't see that if someone's gone to your website. You'll know that how many people clicked on your ad from Instagram or Facebook and that type of thing, but you won't know how many converted, which is a pity. So it's another advantage for these lead ads. This I just wanted to, because I haven't really mentioned e-commerce so much. This is just an example of an Irish company that I worked with, with their own fitness equipment. So it's important to know that it's their own brand, so they can control them, you know, the manufacturing process, and obviously their own margins, and you know, like their unique products, and even though they might be very similar to somebody else. And this is like a snapshot from last year. So we didn't spend a huge amount compared to what other e-commerce businesses might be, because they were mainly only targeting Irish customers. But they, you know, timing was good for them as well, with like knockdowns and stuff like that. But it was, yeah, they got amazing results. They went from not using Facebook ads or kind of struggling with Facebook ads themselves to, yeah, we got it up and running for them, and yeah, spent 54,000 and got 829,000 in return. So I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, and a big part for them was this timed retargeting campaign. So you'll see, I mean, their dumbbells were really popular, so that actually has a higher return on ad spend. But timed retargeting is something I use a lot with clients, especially e-commerce clients. There's a few different ways that you can do retargeting, but this is something I really like, where we have a hot, warm, and lukewarm audience. So, obviously it's all based on timing and actions that people have taken. So as you can see here, I have in the top line there, add to cart, initiate checkout, and add payment information. So if any one of those things happens in the last 14 days, somebody's in this hot audience. So they're going to stay in the hot audience for 14 days. So today somebody goes in, adds something to the cart, doesn't buy. For the next 14 days, they're going to be in our hot audience, seeing specific ads that we have created for people that we want to, you know, we feel we're close to converting, and we want to try and convince them. Then after that, after the 14 days passes, they'll go into warm and so on, out to lukewarm. If they haven't purchased. If they purchased, we'll obviously start excluding them. And the same thing then, view content is basically just viewing the product, visiting the website, or you're just engaging with posts. So this is just an example. You know, if anybody was interested in introducing that into their own Facebook ads, obviously I could go through it in more detail, or I have like a PDF document full of information on how to actually set it up. But you know, I can't emphasize enough how important retargeting is, especially in somewhere where you're spending a lot of money on ads, particularly something like e-commerce, where a lot of people might be getting close to buying, but they get distracted for some reason, or they're just a bit uncertain, and you can use your retargeting ads to convince them. And that's just a quick snapshot of actually how it's set up. It's obviously so this is the warm ad set, and it's very important to make sure that you're doing exclusions as well. So as somebody moves from the hot audience to the warm audience, you need to make sure within the warm audience that you have all these exclusions, and that's basically the audiences that you had in the hot audience. So to make sure that people are only in one of those audiences. And that's basically it. This is just something that I've used, or for people that are working with me, that I let them know that this is how we work. We're always testing, adapting, retargeting, and investing. Again, can't emphasize enough that with Facebook ads, you really need to test, keep testing everything. The copy I mentioned, or I showed you, or the creatives, all of those have come out of tests where we're testing it against other copy. Even just changing a few words or changing the description of the benefit or the problem or something like that. When you're running them side by side, I want to always feel like I'm learning something. Yes, you'll get to the point where you have something that's working really well. So that's where, like I said, you invest more, you scale it. But in general, there's always something going on that we're testing. So that's it. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, so if you want to mute, like, I'll unmute.
Yeah.
So from that club. Okay, so at this point, if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. I do have a question myself, but so I'll kick it off. So, in terms of going back to your targeting method that you were mentioning, do you have any particular suggestions in terms of like how often one should be refreshing their ads? Like, is it like a monthly, bi-weekly? Is that more of a quarterly? Like, is it dependent on the industry? Any comments on that?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure if I should unmute or just try go through.
I muted it already, so you can go.
Okay, yeah. So just to be clear on the question, just how often should you be refreshing ads? Is that what you asked? It does depend on a lot of things. It might depend on your audience size would be one thing, because you could look at the frequency, and if the frequencies are getting very high, then the same people are seeing the ads multiple times. Obviously you should be checking to see if the ads are actually working. So if the ads seem like they're working very well, then you might not actually need to refresh them often. But then again, the same people might still be getting a bit tired of seeing the same ad.
Sure.
So the answer is it depends.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah. But I hope that's helpful. I mean, if you were to show me a specific example,
Yeah.
I could probably give a clearer answer. But I would say that make sure that you have a variety of ads anyway, because Facebook also would, like, let's say you had an ad set and you had 4 ads in there, one week Facebook might be showing more of one ad, and then it might realize one of the other ads is working better and it starts showing that one more. So there's just less of a chance, even if your frequencies are getting high for that audience, people shouldn't be getting as sort of burned out with your ads if you have a variety of ads.
Andrew, you mentioned Facebook has a bigger share of short form video consumption compared to TikTok, which I found surprising. Is that Facebook and Instagram together over TikTok? And is it mainly like Reels on Instagram? Or
That's a very good question. I don't honestly know, but I would say it's definitely including Instagram. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
It's a good question. I could try and find out for you if you want, but yeah, some of those stats I know mention Facebook, but like I said, I think Facebook, obviously it's changed the company name to Meta now, but I feel that probably includes Instagram.
Okay. Yeah,
I was surprised by it too. I was just doing some research and finding some statistics. Yeah.
I was curious about it because Reels obviously work really well on Instagram, and you can post them on Facebook, but they kind of translate just a little bit oddly, I think, because the platform is different.
Yeah.
And so it made me wonder if that included like stories as well, competing for that share.
I imagine it does. Yeah. Okay. It's honestly not even something I thought about before, but I did think it was an interesting statistic.
Yeah.
And because if you think about in the same place where I got that statistic, it was talking about how YouTube was actually number 1, but then short form is under 10 minutes as far as I remember. I could be wrong.
Because they have their shorts as well, but
I'd actually have to check that because it depends, because a 10-minute video might seem very long for Facebook or Instagram.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit shorter, but obviously most videos on YouTube would be a little bit longer. But YouTube is thought for short form, so therefore I guess it's not like 30-second videos anyway.
Do you? Sorry, just to follow up. Do you find any type of creative is more effective for driving conversions, say, as far as, you know, just an image or video?
Yeah, I know I didn't actually mention videos there, and it's partly because in general I'm finding that images are working better.
Okay.
Videos might have a higher click-through rate, which can be a little bit strange because it could be the same copy, the same text that you're using, and you just have an image or you have a video,
Yeah.
and for some reason people will click on your link more with a video, but I wouldn't see that be, you know, always be a better conversion rate. In
Right.
general, I'm finding images are better, but I know a lot of people find videos good, so I think what also happens is, you know, I'm very often dependent on the client to provide me with the assets, and maybe often I'm not getting very good videos, or we'll use videos more in retargeting and maybe not so much in cold. So I would say I find images better for converting, but it still would be important to include videos. I think also, like even within a cold audience, somebody might see your video ad, but then also see your image ad and convert off your image ad, but it doesn't mean that the video ad didn't contribute to the conversion.
Yeah,
You don't see that. Yeah.
Attribution's hard to.
Yeah.
I was just curious, the ad on the meal kit, you know, like just looking at that ad, it was really compelling, just like that first sentence is cut off, you know, it's like makes me want to click on it. And the photo, I mean, that photo, you said it's a really good photo, but I'm just curious, like, is it, you said people with things in their hands, is that why? It was just like a generic guy with a box in his hand, like,
Yeah.
for some reason it is compelling, but I don't know why.
But what's interesting actually is that we did an image test, a creative test, including that one with that guy, and I think there was about 4 other images, and that one came out top. But then when I introduced the other box with the vegetables in front, that started performing better than the guy standing at the door. Now, there could be an element of like a lot of the audience had seen, because working with, I have a lot of clients in Ireland, but we run into problems where Ireland doesn't have that large an audience, so we have to do a little bit more to like go back to Alberto's question of refreshing ads now, because we might burn out audiences soon. And I think there might be an element of that. A lot of people saw the guy standing at the door, and maybe then so it shifted over to the other image performing better. But I think it's having someone's face in the image in that case stops people scrolling. You don't want to do it in a kind of a clickbaity way or a way that you're just trying to get people's attention, but then it doesn't end up resonating. But I think an image like that, if you read the text, we're talking about a box. So yeah, this cooking box and the guy standing here with the box. And it is again their branded box. So it's not just a random image I pulled out of a stock website of a guy at a door.
I'm also curious why, you know, like the headline was compelling in the image, but why the article this long? Like, no one's gonna read that. What's
No, they will. Yeah, but it's just you can read it, so I'll show it to you. See where you want to stop. You're like, okay, I have enough. Well, I must give credit to the person that I learned it from. Chris Roshilo is his name, and he calls it the EPIC, an EPIC ad. And EPIC stands for engage, present, illustrate, and convert. And it's very much like we're not necessarily using a template, but it's very clear where like your engage part is you engage them at the top pretty much with those opening lines. Then you're presenting the problem to them, and in a way that you're not preaching to them, but they're resonating with what you're saying. They're like, oh yeah, that's me. And then you're switching to illustrate what you as a company do or what you offer or how you're going to help them. And then obviously you're trying to convince them or convert them in the end. And obviously you're trying to write it in a way that it flows. Another important thing there is that like if I zoomed in on it a little, even without you reading it, you would see that there's no long paragraphs. Like the sentences are rarely even on your mobile screen 3 lines of text, and we'll also even cut off lines where grammatically, you know, if you were writing, you know, a publication or something wouldn't be right, because you know there might be a lot of starting a line with and or with but it just flows on from the other one. But rather than making it a longer sentence where people just kind of get bored, it just flows. Hopefully they can't help themselves, but you will also actually put a link maybe early on, so you have some people that are interested, but like you said, maybe they get it already, so they don't really need to or want to read anymore. So you make sure you put a link up there early on, maybe about halfway down, and they might just click that link.
Wow, very interesting.
So
I wouldn't expect anyone to read that one.
Yeah. They're all in the chat actually.
Yeah, this, I actually did boost it for my side gig that I told
Oh, yeah.
you about. I actually did get, so interesting enough, I got a lot of likes, but not a lot of conversions to followers. But I've also been, it was just interesting because it's, I'm finding out that the followers doesn't turn into clients actually. It's like people will follow you, but I
Yeah.
won't go over, I guess, to use my services.
Yeah, I wonder if, I can't remember because, you know, obviously I'm just really using Ads Manager, so I haven't looked at the boosting of posts too much, but you'll have an option in there of what you want to get. I imagine, like, is it a choice between link clicks, you know, so like traffic or engagement, or actually conversions as well? And if you're leaning more towards engagement, like I said, that's what you want to get. And
Okay.
then it'll be a bunch of people that'll be happy to engage with you, you know, on your post, but not reach out to you.
I think, long term, I think, see, then I probably need to figure that out a little more and better out, because what I really do want is engagement, because then I want to increase my followers, because in the type of, like, this kind of business, in order to be able to also monetize remote experience, I guess you'd say, you have to have a certain amount of audience or followers before other apps will allow you to kind of have more personalized links. And that's where you monetize for finding stuff online. So.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you got to balance it, you know, because like the extreme of that, which just go buy a bunch of followers just so that it looks like you have all these followers, but it's going to completely dilute, you know, what you have. Or if you're putting posts out there, you're speaking to the wrong people. So I know, yeah, you do want the followers, but you don't want the wrong followers.
Very true. So wait, so you mentioned about that, like what do you discourage going to buy followers?
Definitely, yeah. Well, also, I mean, I guess if Facebook figured that out, they could potentially ban you. I haven't really heard too much about that. But the point is that if you put out a post and you're hoping to get organic reach, you could be organic reach can be poor enough anyway on Facebook or Instagram, but you could be going out then to the complete wrong people, because you could be reaching the people that you just paid to have on there, not the people that legitimately signed up and are interested in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Also, if you were going to run ads, Facebook, even though you might not be doing something like a lookalike audience of your fans, Facebook is probably going to look at your friends, you know, to get an understanding of your business. It could look at the people that are following you and try to find similar people to them, but then it would be misled.
Okay. I guess I have to go a little more digging into what I want to do.
I have a couple more questions.
Yeah,
Go for it. Go for it.
So a sense that I've gotten from Facebook ads, and I think you touched on, I think it's something you said about like the image of the four guys on the golf course, I think was kind of a light bulb moment. Because I've gotten the sense with Facebook ads, and my experience with them in the past, is that it's really easy to try too hard and be too polished and have that fall flat on its face. And is that consistent with the experience you've had? Like,
I would agree. I would say it's not always the case. It depends on the brand and that as well. But
Sure.
Yeah, I think that you're right. That's a really good example of where we've even tested images where we have a nicely designed graphic with maybe we have a person in there, but we also have text and just some other graphics on the image, and the image of people, just straight up photo, will almost always work better. So it's you gotta balance it as well, though, when you think about Instagram, because if and by the way, I find even in niches where it seems like Instagram might be the better place to show ads, Facebook very often will be the place that people will convert more. But you should keep in mind that Instagram doesn't show as much text. It doesn't have that headline below the image like Facebook does, and the actual body copy is below the image, and it cuts off sooner. So in that case, you might need to add more context onto your image.
Right.
If it's not clear from the business name or from something else in the image. but otherwise, yeah, definitely finding, and I think in showing some of the examples there where just a straight up photo, it works very well.
Yeah. And I think the other question I had was pretty much like with, you know, things like Apple's iOS 14 changes and with Facebook even changing the way that you can target audiences. Has Facebook maintained its value as an advertising platform? I mean, obviously, like I saw, you know, your client with the ROAS of over 15, you know, worked really well for them, but like compared to in the past couple of years, what do you think?
It has certainly gotten a little bit more challenging. One good thing about Facebook with that and the Facebook ads is that a lot of advertisers have left Facebook. People that maybe were struggling a bit already, and it's just not really working for them. So that makes it a little bit cheaper for other advertisers. There's more, availability of ads. Yeah, exactly. So like lower cost of impressions. Won't always be the case because it will depend on other things. Could even be seasonality as well. I would say certainly the returns are down, but that you can still do very, very well. It's not. Well, the other thing as well is, you see, partly what's been lost is the tracking. So you don't know if you're a business that's advertising in a number of different places, you might find it more difficult to realize that Facebook is actually performing very well for you. And one of the reasons for that is previously you could see a 28-day attribution window. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
So like that client of mine, for example, Dropchef, with the meal kits, they used to do very well in that 28-day attribution window. So after 7 days, like the difference between the conversions that we would have in the 7-day window and the 28-day window, which obviously includes the people in the 7 as well, but there was definitely more people that were signing up after the 7 days. And I remember at the time when Facebook a little over a year removed the 28-day attribution window, we saved a whole lot of data so that we could actually understand historically what it looked like for us. And now, or after that, we had to kind of make some assumptions that we knew that there would be more people signing up after the 7-day window, but we can't see it on Facebook. Yeah. And then the same person might come back to the site through a Google search, and Google will show a conversion. And then somebody's like, oh, Google's performing way better than Facebook. Hopefully that answers the question a little bit.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate everything that you've shared here. This is being recorded and will be published only to our private YouTube. So if you are a member of the factory, you will have access to this in our YouTube. If you need the link for that, just let us know. Thanks.